Let me see this here. Bam. Let me make my little quick introduction. Hey, hey everybody. This is kind of pretty much off key. I don't know how many people I'm going to have in the chat because I didn't really plan this out, like as far as how we was going to construct it, but we here. We call that being organic. So we're here. But nevertheless, those listening to this on the replay, hopefully y'all love this. Me and Sunrise Hoodie. He's good peoples, and I was like, man, we gotta chop it up. We just gotta chop it up. So here we are, and yeah, we gonna make this happen. We definitely gonna talk about this Renaissance man, because like I told Sunrise Hoodie, like I wanted to do a sequel with him because I already did like a part one with somebody else, but then with Red Supreme, but with Sunrise Hoodie, he just has a very unique and refreshing perspective that, you know, it's very unbiased. Like you can't really put a price on it, you can't put a skin color on it, you can't put a name or a label. He's just, and so I've always respected his content. So we finna chop it up. So here's a question for you, by the way.
Yeah.
What do you think? And I thought of this term, but I'm not sure if maybe this really something you could resonate with. I've thought of this idea of betafied situations.
So you said a situation. Would you say a situationship or a situation?
Like beta, like if you like to try put you in a situation to where you be like a beta. So I call it a betafied situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like, what are my thoughts on how to get into one, or how you end up in one, or how you get out of
how you end up in one, or yeah, maybe possibly how you can get out of it as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of men that are in MGTOW and that have come to, you know, to discover this stuff, even the ones that are making content, I can speak for myself even that I have been a beta in that, in a, you know, whether it's a dating relationship or whether it's in a work situation. And I think a lot of us have gotten into one. I think where you get into one is you feel like you had. I always think of the principle of least interest. So if you are the one that has the least invested in a relationship, you are the one that carries the power. And so you are the one that can, you know, move the chips around, and you are the one that can take risks and chances and really actually be yourself. Because how many times we're in situations and we are afraid to really stand up for what we want because we think we'll lose out on that relationship with that person. And I think that's the biggest reason you get into those, you know, betafied situations, as you call it, is because you think you have too much to lose when in actuality you're just losing yourself. And I know that was, I have had first-hand experience with that. And that's something I've talked about a lot in my earlier videos when I was more fresh off of those situations.
Yes. Like, and my main thing too is like, especially when you bring up work situations, I see this all the time. Like just someone that's, I would say, juxtaposed or have some realm of jealousy about you. They'll find ways to try to make you their subordinate in many different ways. Like a lot of times, like, because I'll just keep it a buck. I've done some work with Amazon before, and a lot of times, like, because I was just a contractor. I didn't work directly for Amazon. I just did private stuff as a contractor, and I found that the people that I did contract with, they weren't used to like a man with his like masculinity in that type of workspace. I think like a lot of modern corporations really have that more millennial feel as far as the workspace, to where like masculinity is not necessarily something that they're used to. I won't necessarily say tolerable or something that they think is unacceptable, but a lot of times it's not what they're used to, I
think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're looking for a certain brand for sure, and a certain brand of a guy. And I think, you know, if you have that masculinity in a workplace, that really they're kind of looking for androgynous males, like males that are the
Yes.
female and male aspect, they're going to hire them more so because it's like within brand of the modern day, and it's like it's hipster and it's comfortable and it's safer. Versus, you're not going to see as many men, even if they're skilled. Let's say if they're, the quintessential masculine male, you're not going to see them, working in Silicon Valley per se. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to get hired. They're not going to fit in, and they're not going to be accepted into the social culture. I mean, it's about digital nomad life. Wearing skinny jeans all the time. Not to pick people apart there about those things, but it's just it's you're trying to fit a certain mold a lot of the time, and it removes masculinity from a lot of these jobs that pay a lot.
Thanks. I agree. Like, and it makes you wonder, like, the men that are like more masculine, they have to, I guess, especially given this downtime we're having and possible resets, maybe a lot of guys have to look for startups or something like that. Or
yeah, I mean, that could be a problem too, because so many of the startups are also run by those androgynous males, and part of it is also younger culture is going to be more in tune with those types of industries, I think. But it's definitely difficult in a real masculine guy, especially if he's working with females or supervising a lot of them. He's going to, I feel like he has to make them feel safe and like that he's not a threat.
Right.
Which is unfortunate,
And the thing that's crazy is if when you bring up the word safe, let's say like there was a dangerous situation that occurred at the workplace, as much as they don't want you to be masculine, they expect you to be masculine during those dangerous situations.
Yeah, they expect you to be the masculine guy and the masculine presence there, but don't push it too far, or else you're going to get reprimanded. So you're really walking a tightrope there. And when really pressure situations come up or decisions have to be made, that's when they'll turn to men to make those decisions. But if they're acting that way, often get put in the corner.
Here's an interesting question, because I still want to kind of touch on the beta situations, but do you think that with the Bible Belt, do you think that's more of a matriarchal institution or a patriarchal institution?
I think it was a patriarchal institution. I think it was foundationally more patriarchal, and I'm not saying patriarchal in a negative sense. Like I remember a time I was interviewed, Lisa Ling, who did that CNN feature on MGTOW, or divorced men. They interviewed me for that, and I used the word patriarch, and the next like 10 minutes I was getting like chastised for using that word and had to redefine it. But I think it's a more I was like, I think it definitely is a more patriarchal establishment. I mean, you read the Bible, and men are the ones that are teaching in the churches. They're the ones that are expected to lead, and that's how those cultures were made. But now, a lot of churches and a lot of the Bible Belt is just becoming a part of modern day culture. So it's becoming more matriarchal.
Facts. Yeah, I will see that too, because my thing is, it's like there was like, of course, on one of these YouTube videos about the little TED conventions that they be having. And of course, you kept hearing this word patriarchy thrown around as far as the founding of the United States. The founding fathers were patriarchal. We're living under this patriarchy. All this stuff they say. So I threw I threw something out there. I was like, well, would you more or less say that back then there was more tyranny instead of a patriarchy? And it's funny, a lot of the females, that they really didn't have much of a comeback for that. And I got a lot of likes for that question, and so they just more or less just given obviously the history of everything here in this country and stuff like that. People don't want to see that, kind of like what you said, whatever was represented as a true patriarchy was probably far few between and yesteryear, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it gets lumped into the word, dictatorship. I think like it ends up like the modern day connotation of patriarchy is a dictatorship, is like abuse. That's like how it's perceived, and so it's a taboo word, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because of that. So I mean, but it's words get redefined. That's the other thing that very important to
Man.
stay up on, because words get redefined as time goes on, and then you end up using it.
Right.
And if we used the word patriarchy 67 years ago, it would have been fine. It would have been kind of seen as the word was meant to be.
Yeah.
And now it's something completely different.
Facts. And it's kind of like how some people are even trying to redefine MGTOW too, on the side note. Some people try to associate MGTOW with incel. And
yeah,
I'm like, but given the MGTOW philosophy, it actually isn't incel. You just have some people who try to represent the MGTOW banner who were actually incels.
Yeah, I've had that thrown, not necessarily to me, but just in my personal life, if they see how I act and I'm not actively pursuing a relationship, or I've turned one down, or it's either you get gay or you get incel thrown at you, or there's something wrong with you. When in the reality, it's really, it has nothing. It's not mainly based on how your interactions are with women. It's really just kind of a culture. It's a philosophy of life that takes into account the modern world, and you're living it differently. You're living it more as a man going your own way, and you're trying to eliminate a lot of the pitfalls that come in the way if you're participating in things the society wants you to do. It's like it pigeonholes it as this they're men that are bitter and complaining.
Right. And it's funny how ever since now, and I kind of like this this term, because I guess it was during the time when Cuban Gooding got arrested, and because of the Me Too movement, he kept saying "not me." And so I was like, this definitely applies now to where a lot of guys are responding to Me Too, and so all of a sudden these same females that have been locking guys up are screwing them out of marriage, alimony, child support. Now they're like, you're gay because you don't want to talk to women. And it's like,
that's a really good point,
man.
I mean, a really good point.
It's like a double entendre. It's like they're doing shaming language as well as gaslighting at the same time.
Yeah, you're 100% accurate. And so if you engage in it, you put yourself at risk. Like, you can have a Cuba Gooding situation, you can have financial repercussions, and if you don't, you also have your reputation just depreciate, because they're calling you out for being not a man and avoiding them.
Facts. It's like the statement goes, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's 100% what's happening. And it's very rare that other people that aren't exposed to this information can see both sides of that happening, or put them together. And that's really a thesis. That's like the thesis for a lot of MGTOW, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like on both sides of the path that I'm on, I'm getting shaming and I'm getting life destruction from you. Why would I go away from the path?
And see, with me, I was really into Christianity a lot, and I still have a lot of Christian foundations and grassroots aspects about myself. But just given my direction now, I've been learning more Hebrew, but not like becoming like the Hebrew Israelites. Like, I'm not the radical ones out there, but just more or less even based on the Bible aspect of sex was marriage. There was no paper sign. It was just sex. And I tell a lot of females this, and it's like they be getting mad because they want to go through the ceremony and the signing of the papers. And I'm like, no, the papers have, a lot of times I've seen those papers signed, and the man actually never got a chance to have sex with that woman. and she was able to divorce him a few days later or something, and still screwed him out of stuff, man.
That's wild.
Yeah,
that's another level of like succubus right there.
yes, indeed. Yeah.
That's another level of it. I've not heard of that or even thought of it, but I imagine that's happened for sure.
Man.
And that's a great point. I mean, when have you read in the Bible that, you know, they had this wedding ceremony and they spent, you know, $50,000 on a destination wedding? That didn't happen.
No.
You know, it was, you know, you found your woman that you were going to marry in the marketplace, and you didn't even date her. You pretty much, you know, you had sex a week later, and you were together.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what it was. That was simple as that. I mean, it was not complicated. It was, you were not getting spied on by the government. You know, you didn't have all these division of assets. It's just become this complicated web.
Man, and now you got OnlyFans out here. You know,
I know,
it
man,
just adds to that web. It adds to that web.
Yes, I know. Now you have that, and I mean, I was talking to a guy on that I know. He reaches out occasionally. He lives in Thailand. He actually has not lived in the States for 30 years. He's an expat, and I was basically getting up to speed on things, and he was like, you know, back in the 60s, you know, there were 10 porn stars. There were like 10. Now it's, you know, now the printing press has been made in the porn industry. It's not just available to those 10 actresses. It's available to every single person that has a webcam and an internet connection.
Facts.
You know?
Facts.
And it's just like, it's just become a disgrace. And that brings a whole new level of sin into the situation. You know, you have the eSIM now because of OnlyFans,
right,
and all that stuff. And it's just an industry. It's really just, all it is the revenue industry to get money out of men's pockets.
Right. And one thing I think I used to be more of an advocate about is you know, during a lot of my blue pill days per se, like as far as even the whole porn side of it, I never really liked a lot of human porn. I always prefer the anime because sex is spiritual. So when you see actually two people doing that spiritual act, and of course during that time, like you said, that's a succubus incubus situation. And you're literally looking at the transferring of souls and demons right at that particular moment. So anime to me was the safe space, so to where I can at least assess what I'm watching and be discerning of if, you know, I should continue to watch that. Whereas it's like, okay, now you're watching two people actually doing such a thing, and little do I know my mind is getting inundated of things. Because let's say if one of those porn stars actually looks like one of my exes, so that's another spiritual aspect right there. And and if I wanted to like partake in that situation myself, but not knowing if this girl is actually cheating on her husband at home, we have no clue, you know. And so there's all these spiritual things people don't think about in regards to sex, and as well as like sex is marriage. So I think like even from the standpoint of like our topic tonight, I think a man recognizes that. I mean, obviously you and I both do, but I think like just getting more men to recognize that is very important, especially these young guys. You know, if most guys had this mindset of sex is marriage, well, given the marriage climate, you're just like, well, there's only so many women I would want to have sex with, if that's the case. You know.
Yeah, that redefines it, right? It redefines it, and it redefines your options. Yeah. And I think a lot of people get in bad situations because they don't understand the spiritual component of it. Yep. And if you don't understand the spiritual component of it, there's no value in it. You know, because I was just talking, literally, before I got on this call, I was talking about this very topic with a friend, talking about pornography in that sense, in the spiritual sense. I mean, you see that person and you carry on their energy, you carry on their image with you. It's ongoing. You know, it's new weight that you've added into your life. And it's not something that's really dealt with and I think it inhibits a lot of men
Yeah.
as well, because it's not only that, it's just consumption of dopamine constantly.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
yeah, it's like how can you expect yourself to like to read a book or to drink a cup of coffee if that is at your fingertips all the time and you're always,
Yeah.
you know, you can't. It's impossible. Good luck, you know.
Yeah. But then you got the guys that now I'm not really, you know, because we talk about the no fap and all that. That's another story,
Mhm.
and I've addressed that. But this idea of semen retention, I think to myself, if you're conducting yourself with a woman in that regard, like we just expressed about this whole spiritual side of things, you might as well finish what you started. But it's like, but I'm just saying. But you got guys that, you know, they're doing all this semen retention in the midst of them practicing all that pump and dump stuff. And I think that's very difficult to try to practice that. Man.
Yeah, that's like double talk. I think, you know, it's really, you know, I don't think it's even feasible to pull off. And I think in that the semen retention world and that conversation, I think the main thing that people are endorsing and that they're drawing from is that, okay, I have all this energy that I'm not expelling in that area. It's got to go somewhere, right?
Right.
It's energy within you. Now it has to exist in another area, you know? So you get the Nikola Tesla conversation. Well, he never married, never had any girlfriends, so he was inventing, you know? So you get like, that I think is the whole idea that people say, like, I feel more energized, I feel like I have better focus. Well, you're basically saying I'm removing a massive part of human life and nature, you know, and not having sex, and now I'm doing a bunch of other things. What am I doing now?
Right. And that to me is that's still a form of spiritual suicide, you know. Whereas just challenging guys, if you think a certain way, you can be making sure you're around a better environment, if that makes sense, you know. But more or less with a guy, I think that's in monk mode, he's dealing with things more discreetly. But I think like when we're talking on what we're talking about, we're the guys that do more of that semen retention stuff. Those are not guys that I think are purely monk like that, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't think they'll even bring it up. I don't think they'll even, you know, engage in those conversations. I mean, I've seen so many of those videos made on non-MGTOW channels. I'm trying to think of a couple. One off the top of my head, the guy's name's like Elisha something, Elisha Long or something like that. Another guy's his name's like Spiritual Soul or Soul Immortal. Or
oh yeah, him.
Yeah. Yeah, I watch this stuff, but, you know, and that's where it'll be brought up. And I mean, I know it's something going on out there, but it comes from the root of men getting in relationships with women that they just like know that they've had this energy vampirism. So they're like, I gotta like recharge my batteries. You know, that's like kind of the root of it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm just like I'm more on the space like probably like where you at. I'm like the total opposite. Like I'm either going to put it all in or don't put nothing in the situation at all. You know.
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, it's better to choose something and not be in the gray. You know, I think
Facts.
I think it's easier to make a black and white decision than to say I'm maybe going to do it. It's like, you know, if you're trying to quit eating Doritos, don't buy the Doritos. Don't put them in your house and give you a chance to say yes or no on a daily basis. Just like do it or don't do it. You know, it's going to be a mental mess up.
Exactly. And so to me, this also brings up another thing, you know, just kind of stick with the topic here. Like it makes you wonder, like in a lot of these movies, let's say these apocalyptic movies, and the guy's out there on his own, you know, going his own way per se. For sure, that to me, that's purely like a going his own way situation there. And there's always this woman or there's some chick that wants to show up and wants to follow him wherever he's going, you know. And it's like, so it's like, okay, you're gonna mess up whatever I'm doing physically, mentally. Like, you're actually gonna screw it, and then I'm gonna have to think about semen retention just because you're around right now.
Yeah. I mean, just keep doing your own thing, you know, and try to master that and try to master your own thoughts. energy. I know people have made that comparison to I Am Legend. I've actually never seen the movie, but apparently like something happened like that. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's like, to me, I'm more or less, it's almost like, if you incorporate her into your forging when you're out there surviving or whatever, you pretty much have to change your routine of how you survive. You can't more or less go the way you were by yourself. She's going to be there, even if, you know, as biblically written, she's there to be your helpmeet. She's still an extra body. You know, she's still an extra entity that's now walking alongside you. And so now you have to think about, you have to think about her protection, her safety, as well as yours. And and so it's like, so at that time, like you said, I think even then there's no gray area there. You know, you have to decide if she's there. Now you need to change the way you survive out there in an apocalyptic situation. You know.
Yeah, it's like, all right, am I going to wake up with the intent to forge and to search and to, you know, find resources every day with her in mind? I mean, you schedule out your day, right? As a man, and like, does that factor into my schedule now? And it really becomes extra weight too, like you said. Like it that's another mouth to feed. That's another person to have depending on you. And I think, you know, for the men that go their own way, it's, you know, that's a big reason why they do it. It's a lighter backpack. You know, it's a lighter backpack in those situations. And, you know, talking about this apocalyptic thing, there are definitely a lot of men in MGTOW that think in that sense on a daily basis too. They think on an apocalyptic sense with the world that it is right now. You never know, and especially looking at the world right this exact year.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be a reality in 5 years. You know, it's like I got to be fleet of foot and have as much on my own. And I'm like looking at my own life, and I'm like, yeah, I probably have to get my life together a little bit better way to prepare for that.
Well, and it's like, to me, it brings up the point to where, and this could really probably let some hairs on people's necks stand up. Like this, when you brought up androgyny before we got on live here, to me, feminism was the precursor to androgynism. To me, because
it's go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because to me, it's more or less when you put in a woman a certain nature or fabricate a nature in her to go against the male or the masculine, now it becomes unnatural. Now it's not based on the way things were designed initially.
Yeah, it's based on not how things were designed. And what it does is that if that is the standard that we have to be in, if the culture is now feminist, then men, in order to survive, have to take on feminine qualities because they still have to survive in the culture.
Facts.
You know, if it's inherently feminist culture, before it wasn't inherently a male culture, it was nature. Men had the role, women had the role, but now it's just becoming a role designed for gender. And so, you know, then you're becoming something you're not. And so men are in this middle place. Exactly. They're in this androgynous position.
And I think like when you brought up nature, to me that brings up a perfect example of where I would never even say it was like more or less equal or egalitarian. Like when you're in the wild, to me that represents more of a equilibrium, kind of a complementary thing. Like, because she has her role as a woman and he has his role as a man, they kind of come together and they just kind of balance each other. But it's not based on this her equal to him and him equal to her. It's just like the complementary aspect. And we've lost that. We lost that sense of that complementary aspect of the equilibrium. Like, you know, and it truly shows. That's why I like the yin and the yang so much, because it shows that true equilibrium of the feminine and the masculine in that sense. But we, like you said, we've gone so far from that. Like it's truly, to me, feminism is like the origins of the androgyny that is to come. Like if they were to change DNA structures in us and all that stuff, or just socially engineer our minds to where it's natural for a man to be a little feminine, and it's natural for the woman to be a little masculine. Like that's acceptable now.
Yeah, we've socially engineered what nature is, basically now. Like nature has been socially engineered to fit our narrative in the West. And that's why that's 100% why a lot of men have left the United States and have become expats. It's because they're trying to go back to places where nature is as it is, and it's not questioned.
Right.
Now it's become about power, and that's what you're getting at is like this egalitarian conversation and who is on top and who's on the bottom and who's together. It's all about it's now about power. If it's about nature, then it's just about being. If it's about egalitarianism and top and bottom, it's about who is in the lead. It's like it's this total possession.
Yeah. And it's like now it's like, and I've always said it's about like relationships. I've never been the type to be like, that's my girl or I'm her man, and because it involves this idea of possessing and owning something. Like if I was really like, as far as the mindset of getting with somebody, I just want her to be around me because she wants to be around me. Like there wasn't a sense of possession to that, and I realize a lot of chicks can't handle that. They're not used to that type of mindset themselves. But it's like, but you say you want to be with somebody. Oh,
yeah. It's like why are you not more possessive about?
Right.
You'll get that accusation. It's like you are not. Listen, you are not this like puppet. I don't know if it's like a weird aphrodisiac. It's like I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? Like this is not. You tell me that I can't be like that, but if I'm not being possessive and I'm not having that lordship over you, and I'm just treating it as a relationship, then it's, I'm not manly enough. Now I'm not a man enough. It's like,
right.
It's just this total, we'll just word salad even that.
Or if you like, or if you be too much of a man, this rape. Oh, you gotta throw out the R word. The R word. Yeah. So it's like
it's too much of a man, and too much of a man, and you want too much control. It's like you don't. Now you're clinging. Like it's like you again. It's tightrope. They like tightrope.
Yeah.
Get you on that little balance beam.
Yeah.
See how much you can balance on it.
Yeah. And to me, I've always like, cause see, my idea on BDSM is very different, like than a lot of people. So because in outside of all that acting, they don't want a dominant man. They don't want a man to be masculine. So what is the BDSM when she role plays? So I often made a different acronym of that. And for me, that acronym was boys doing simpish mannerisms.
Yeah. I mean, you're giving into it. You're giving into this fantasy too. That it's not, you're giving into a fantasy of yours.
Yeah. That's facts. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. It's like, well, that's what's going on, because outside that bedroom, she's going to try to put back on the grown man's pants in the relationship.
Right. Yeah, it's like in private places, we're going to have this certain rule, but in public, I want to make sure that all of my friends are knowing that I'm in the lead, and that you are the one that's leashed.
Yeah.
It's double talk again.
Facts. And I think a lot of that led me to wanting to understand about this whole the red pill logic. And I think, to me, to be honest with you, like, because the Bible actually has the word matrix in it. A lot of people don't know that. But the thing is that this whole idea of being born again and all this, like, I started like flip light it upside down. Like it was really like this red pill thing. Like, and then being not conformed to this world. Oh, there it is right there. Like, what is the world? And then you start to really understand, like, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Like, oh, okay. This red pill kind of sounds like that transformation, like it's starting to tie in, because you're going to church, but they're blue pill. So
they're not talking about that.
Yeah. See, exactly. So that's really the main reason why I never really got the church girl. because I knew like something ain't right about these church girls, most of them. But at the same time, it's like I don't want the thought either, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you know what I'm saying? I think the main thing for me, what got me to this red pill space more so was because all that double, you said that double situation or whatever.
Double speak, double talk,
yeah, that really bothered me a lot. And I said, you know what? I don't have any kids yet, given the date of this video. And right, knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
But I said, yo, some gotta get right. And so I don't know what happened, more or less. More or less what happened was I started to I'm trying to see what led me down the road to be learning about MGTOW and red pill. I think I've watched watched a guy named Tommy Sotomayor, and he talked a lot about like that stuff. Yeah. And so I think from there, because I really wasn't feeling like a lot of, and I don't care if this is public, but there's certain things that he said that didn't really apply to me. I'm gonna just leave it like that. But at the same time, you get the videos underneath his video.
Yeah.
So it's like, depending on the subject matter, you'll see MGTOW, blah, 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 or red pill, blah, blah, blah. And so I clicked on that. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is for me. How long ago was it for you that you came across it?
I came across back in 2017.
Okay, yeah, that was similar to my time. I found it in about 16. Yeah, 16, and then they didn't start making content until 17. But that's how it is. It's like once you find it, I mean, it is that transformation. You don't see anything like you once did, and it's impossible to make your mind think differently.
Facts. I can tell you this, I haven't had as many broken hearts since. Like,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
If I had an ex and she still tried to do me wrong, that's because she knew me from my blue pill days. So it's like,
right.
And so it's like, hey, you have nothing else to say against me. What do you really want to talk about? Because I got other things to do,
Yeah, I mean, they won't recognize you, and that's the thing. I mean, I think back on those relationships, and I'm like, man, there are countless things that I would have handled differently. It's unbelievable,
Facts.
That if anything is the benefit of being in it. You have something to reflect on, and thankfully I came out, relatively unscathed. I whether I'm kids, they don't have any, I don't have any alimony, and all that stuff. And that's what I talked about recently on a live stream is a lot of guys, we just happen to have weathered the storm.
Yes.
Like you weathered the storm long enough, and then you just exist and you find this content.
Yes.
And then you're not part of the world that you once were. And speaking back on the churches, I mean, if you go into a church today, they're not just going to pull up, do not love the world or anything in the world. Whoever loves the world doesn't love God. It's like, they're not going to say that. That's not the message. The message ends up being this watered down message about just, be a good person, just serve, just like, it's not like, all right, we're going to destroy this previous thought. However you thought about things, it's going to be destroyed. It's not harsh like that.
Right.
And that's the blue pill reality. The blue pill reality is there are no harsh, truthful statements.
No.
Yeah, it's rainbow world, pretty much.
Facts. And it makes you wonder, because to me, like, when you learn of like this, like, especially, going forth with the modern Renaissance man, like, to learn of red pill knowledge in this logic that we follow in many ways, like, to me, it just brought me close to the creator in many ways that I didn't experience back during the blue pill days of what I thought was being born again. Now it's like, to me, a rebirth. I think a lot of this is predestined. So it's like, I see blue pill the opposite. If red pill is bringing a lot of people close to the creator, then blue pill is bringing people a lot further from the creator, or it suppresses them from really knowing him.
Yeah, it's a materialistic and it's a physical reality.
Yeah.
You know, that's what the blue pill way is. And you see and then once again, it's not towards nature, it's anti-nature.
Yeah.
And in terms of men, we're not acting how men should be. We're not, the red pill reality is a reality that was set forth within the structure of how the world was to be. And I think that's why a lot of men, when they find red pill, it gets them out of depression a lot of times. It gets them thinking about how to advance themselves. It gets them to think about how to improve themselves, how to use skills, what skills they don't have.
Facts. And it seems, and I got some dogs outside, some neighbors' dogs.
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But yeah, to me that's blue pill too, like this type of situation, like with these neighbors' dogs. That's another story. But
I've been there too with that. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, come on, just get them reeled in here. It's like, why are you even causing this stress in your life?
Yeah.
It's like,
oh,
do you enjoy that?
Well, speaking of, a lot of females, they got these German shepherds and Rottweilers and pit bulls, man. Hey, another story altogether, because I guess
you gotta replace the man with the Rottweiler.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it makes you wonder, because I've noticed, actually, given this whole pandemic thing per se, obviously a lot of their behavior has not changed. I think it's gotten worse, so it's like now you and so it makes you wonder, like I think, like you said, like kind of leading to what guys should be doing as far as going their own way. They should, like, this is really the perfect time to do that. Like the perfect time. Yes.
Yeah, it is on a platter for you.
Right. As well as it's on a platter for a guy to cater to them, if because they're so desperate, because they don't have nobody. A lot of them don't. So, or they don't have no type of man at the contact. So if a simp just shows up and do whatever to get with her, they're down for that. And then after the quarantine is over with, per se, whatever date that's going to be, she's just going to, throw him under the bus and go back to normal business, And
yeah, it's because more options are now available. The marketplace, has been diminished now, so they will be willing to commit and be selective.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like, it's free for all now that the quarantine's over. But going back to it, for a man improving himself, I mean, this situation, or making a change in his life, this situation is put on a silver platter for you to make a change in your life, because you hear those stories about guys quitting their day-to-day job, their 9 to 5, and they go on they're doing that in a normal situation, in a normal economy. Everything's open still, and it's kind of hard. And society will look down on you if you're not working and you're trying out this new avenue in your life. But now nobody has their normal. So if you really want to make that change, now is the perfect time.
Man.
Society even accepts it.
Man.
It's because it's like, you don't have that availability. You do, for many people, that 9 to 5 anymore. It's taken out of your control.
Right. I don't know if maybe you can peep the demographics on this, but this happened during my blue pill days. I used to work at a hotel. And so my thing is I was front desk, right? And there was like this party going on. And this was in South Dakota at the time. And so this guy came to me at the front desk, and he was crying, bawling his eyes out, man. I was like, is everything okay? He was like, no, man, I just went up to the room and caught my gal. She was making out with somebody in our room. And I just was like, but there was but y'all had a party up there. Yeah, I know it was a big party, man, but she invited me and I came, and I think she didn't know what time I was showing up, and I just caught her in the act. And I'm ready to go home. There's no way I can get a cab. And I was like, because he asked if I could use our shuttle to get him home. And I said, well, how far you live? Because we normally only do to the airport, from the hotel to the airport. And
Gotcha.
And given this situation, I try to see like if there's some exceptions. So I was like, so how far do you live? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. Like I live further than what your radius is. Like he literally had to go almost 100 miles back home.
Dude, he just had, and he was just going to drive that night just to have his party.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yes. And you know, for that little place in South Dakota, a lot of these blue pill situations happen all the time where guys just, they don't know that the nature of a lot of the females out there like that. She's just like, she just has you there for a convenience or a trophy piece for that particular moment, if that.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that is not realized, having spent time in both urban and rural settings. When I lived in a rural area myself, similar to South Dakota, what you realize is guys get bent out of shape over a girl. And they get bent out of shape because a lot of them are coming from these towns that, they went to high school, and that high school had maybe, 30 people in that graduating class. And, not many of them go to college, but they do go to college. It's now a big difference. You're at a state university with 30, 40,000 people. And before, if your girl broke up with you in high school, you thought it was the end of the world because your options after that were limited to like the 15 girls in your graduating class.
Right.
But now you get into this new environment and you're like, wow, I was in the scarcity mindset. I had this scarcity mindset that I thought she was the only one that ever existed too. Now I'm in this new place and I'm like, there's 25,000 different girls here, and I'm getting bent out of shape over this one girl that is cheating on me too. What am I doing?
Right.
It's like, just throw her to the side. She wasn't worth it anyway.
Right.
It's just like, it wakes a lot of guys up, and I think that's when guys change their environments too. They kind of learn that, and I've seen that happen so many times with different guys that I've known that really haven't spent any time in the city or in an urban area, and they're just mind changing.
Right. And it kind of like, and it's funny because back in them days, I didn't quite resonate with the idea of there's plenty of fishes in the sea, just leave her alone. But upon getting into red pill knowledge about things, the term one nighties showed up, and I resonated to that quick.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's the male instinct though. You kind of take, like they say, I mean, the man has a much more difficult time moving on from a relationship than a woman does.
Facts.
They get entrenched in these relationships, and a lot of guys come out, and myself included, in one relationship I can think of in particular where I was like just mystified, and I'm like, this girl, is she a robot? Man. Does she have emotions with this? I don't understand what she's putting me through, and she seems unaffected. Meanwhile, I am. It's just like, it's not what the media portrays. The media portrays that the man is the one that's just, never gets any type of emotional connection there, or one-itis.
Yeah,
and
man.
If he does, he's like a Cameron Fry from Ferris Bueller, just kind of like that guy that's just like moping around. It doesn't get out of bed, and just like, that's going to be how it's portrayed, and nobody takes it seriously.
Facts. I can relate to that too, unfortunately. I know what that's like, and I hate to say this, but one of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump. And because I guess it still like correlates with a lot of my blue pill thoughts on things back in the day. But I guess the red pill side of me that still likes the Forrest Gump movie was despite all that he was feeling, he still chose to just not think much and just still go out there and live life as far as, go out and run, or if anything, just continue to do what you've been doing. Like he had actually a lot of successes in his life, despite him being stuck on Gen A,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's where, I think it's a good message about for men and, the Renaissance man. I mean, his value came with him leaving home and doing all those other things.
Yes.
That's where his identity came. And then twofold, that's where your, marketplace value comes from.
Yes.
It comes from, for a man in particular, it comes from what you've seen done and you know, experience.
Facts.
You know, and that's what he ended up doing, and it ended up being the best thing for him too.
Yes, yes. And I think even with that said, like as far as the this idea, like, because I believe like you know, someone going their own way represents this whole Renaissance aspect as well. But like when you actually like are going in a certain direction, you're not going back to the plantation. You're not going back. You know, you're staying away from that. You know, and the church don't teach you how to do that. You know.
Yeah, it doesn't. It teaches you, you know, for men in particular, it doesn't teach that in a public setting in particular, because, you know, a lot of men in churches are at that church because of a woman that has brought them to that church. And
Facts.
A lot of pastors and leaders of congregations understand numbers and understand, I've got to keep seats filled here. And so I've got to keep my message, you know, palatable to the women that are bringing these men here.
Facts.
You know, and what it is hypocrisy at that point. You know, it's just straight up hypocrisy. So, you know, once again, they're just not. There's not a lot of places for men to embrace that and to be taught that, and that's why this information, the online world, is showing up, and men are sharing it here. You look at YouTube, and the numbers of male versus female and the demographics of consumption of YouTube content is largely male. Yeah. Because it's information, and it's one of the few spaces that has this content out there.
Facts, facts. And I know I'm very thankful of it, because there was many times that as I was doing that conversion from blue pill to red pill, I really am thankful. And even a lot of your videos you put out has helped me out a lot too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's one of the biggest blessings, because I've been blessed by so many other guys that have made videos, and it's just, you know, it's truly crazy to think of how much my perspective has changed because of something I found on YouTube. You know, like who would have thought that this, you know, philosophy would have even exist on, you know, on the internet? You know,
right.
I wouldn't have guessed, you know.
Right. And it's funny because I've never, like, even in the blue pill world, I was never like the pure simp per se. I always had like this and I explain this and I express this a lot at my channel. I've always had like this lone wolf persona, but not really a personality type to attach to the lone wolf persona. I just always been kind of a loner type, you know, very much to myself. But within that still though, I mean, blue pill is still blue pill. So there's certain aspects, like, for example, for me, more or less, like my problems with a lot of females and colleagues per se was just given my standoffish approach, like they couldn't figure me out, right? And so, but I was blue pill with it. So of course, the thing I would do in that situation was I try to be like, well, I don't want you to think that I'm being a mean person, and I do like to talk to you, you know, doing all that. Oh, I look back on that, like, why did I? So
yeah, you're like, why don't I just lay it on the line? Like it's always like you're trying to save face a little bit. And you know, and a lot of it is to just playing the game. Like, I think, you know, especially in a work setting, and in my work setting in particular, where, you know, I'm supervising a lot of, you know, women or women younger than me, you know, I basically am like, all right, I'm just going to be my normal self, and I'm going to do what I need to do and get my work done. But I'm going to just cut it off there, and I don't want there to be kind of any kerfuffle or any emotion, you know, really anything extra, you know, because it's just, what is it going to get me? It doesn't get me anywhere. It doesn't get me anywhere good. And the world is a lot different now, because, I mean, you didn't used to be that men were working side shoulder to shoulder with women as much. Right. You know, that used to be totally separated.
Oh, and there's this other thing, and I guess I'm not going to have too many things to say about, like, as far as, you know, it goes back to my Amazon experience, but I don't have a name on this person. I'll just basically say what they said at that time. You know, as far as like with the way some women per se go out doing deliveries or when they're at the job, they all were like, well, we're allowed to wear spandex pants because that's a more womanly look. And I'm like, really? All right, really? I'm just shaking my head. All I got to do is see her jiggle that a little bit while she's walking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pray now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm gonna have to think about which way. You know, it's a total manipulation tactic, is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what girl is gonna get fired then? If she's, you know, she's not. She's protected now because she's wearing that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like it's a total smokescreen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I've had to turn a couple of girls away or make them change because of just dress code and stuff like that.
See,
it's like, doesn't this seem obvious? Like, you know, but it's like, you know, they can be safer. They can have more job security after the night, stuff like that.
But see, and then the idea even comes across, let's say you're at that higher position, like you're CEO, entrepreneur, or whatever, and you got the subordinate that's coming at you dressed in a certain way, and you tell her, hey, you got to change that around, or you tell the secretaries to tell her to do that, but she may still come across as like trying to make herself vulnerable to see if you'll give in. And so,
yeah, I mean, or they'll turn it around that you're being, you know, misogynistic or, you know,
yeah,
just like controlling or, you know, not accepting or, you know, why you're even thinking about that. Your mind shouldn't even be there. I mean, again, it can just be total gaslighting too.
Man, facts.
Yeah,
facts.
It's like you can't even deal with it. Like you can't even address the issue. Like
no.
I got like kind of like chided by a coworker. We got, you know, an intern, and she had applied from, I'm not going to name the business, but a business that has a reputation of pretty much being based on thoughts. And I was like, I saw her application, and I didn't really need the person to fill this position at the time anyway. And I just was like, no, I'm not gonna hire her, you know, because it's like I don't want to deal with the headache.
Right.
It's like, especially in a work setting.
Facts, man.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. It's like now it's like, you know, yeah, it's just gonna be interesting. Just taking on different trades to where you don't have certain interactions as time goes on. I think that's very important for the men in the future starting this renaissance, because I think about like as far as even the way like yeah, with the whole idea of MGTOW, that's like going back to, you know, guys who developed certain philosophies like Socrates and Aristotle. Okay, so in this day and age, I mean, basically you're a philosopher right now, and I guess I'm trying to be one. I guess because I do have a certain.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we're having these conversations. I mean, not many people are just having these conversations and are reaching out simply about having conversations about this stuff in our day and age. If it is, it's usually going to be about maybe, you know, let's get online and let's play a video game together. Let's get online and let's, you know, do this together. You know, it's not simply just about sharing ideas, which is what it used to be for those philosophers, for Seneca and Plato and Socrates, Aristotle. It was you would sit down and do a talk, and that's how these books were written. People would have understudies.
Facts. And that's the thing, you know, there were had the amphitheaters where the men could gather, because I know we mentioned about a certain way men could be a collective, you know, prior to us going live. But I think like now, okay, what if there was like an amphitheater, like the way the philosophers did it then, you know, like could they gather there to talk openly, you know? But
yeah, but and the sad thing is, where does our amphitheater have to be? It has to be online.
Yeah.
You know, we're ushered into this margin where it has to be online, and for some of us, we're not only ushered into a margin online where we have to have aliases and, you know, not show our face, and we can't be public about it. You know, that if anything is so alarming, and it creates, you know, if you think back and look on it, it's like, wow, the narrative and the message of the modern world is being controlled.
Yes.
We can't, free speech is really not there anymore.
No.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, I mean, we're we're on YouTube now. We're not in those incubators, unfortunately.
And I sort of started to even lean more towards the idea of and this is, I think this probably never gonna hurt like the way I'm gonna tell you, like I think even the idea of racism is another form of feminism, because if you get it to where men could not like each other, they can't build together, you could get them to where they can't like each other, and that's undermining the masculinity that those men would actually show each other if they actually came together to do something, to make a difference. And so this has a lot of undertones to where, and I always say, like, the people that preach a certain divisive message or have a certain divisive mindsets, they've been messed up by the system. They've been absorbed by the system in many ways. Because I always thought, like,
there's some wound.
Yeah, that's facts.
There's some wound there, and there's something that you're trying to right, and you've either been oppressed in some way, and now it's about reversing power.
Yeah,
we live in that cyclical nature of power, reversal of power.
Yeah,
throughout the world, and I mean, that's what feminism is right now. It's indoctrination, and in my opinion, it's like satanic, to be honest.
Yeah,
Has ruined every type of order.
Yeah, because that's like what aspects of masculinity and patriarchal represents is order. But you look on a dollar bill, it says order out of chaos. So you usurp what was originally the natural order of things to make it the way you want it, the order you want it. And you see that on and on in society. Like, I kind of know a little bit about the history of the Vikings, but it's kind of similar as far as the history of people with my shade of color to a certain extent. Just based on I knew a girl from Sweden, and she just said Sweden is not the same as it was. Like,
oh yeah, it's so far different, man. You're so right.
Yeah, and so you mean tell me you had this country full of warriors and a warrior class people who just real patriarchy, real masculinity, and all that's gone. Like, that just evaporated. Like, so that makes me think, like, the way wars were fought back then, like, if there was a such thing. And what I mean by this, because I actually got a live talking about this down the road. I believe, like, the true patriarchal men, they were defending themselves. They didn't start the wars. The wars came to them, and they had to be like, you just wake up one morning like, what the world's going on? I see arrows and bombs and cannons. Now you got man. So
exactly, and an emasculated mindset feels the need to attack.
Yes.
The masculine mindset is comfortable, but will defend if needed.
Facts.
That's how it is, and it's 100% right about Sweden in particular. If there was any more of a warrior, strong culture, it was Eric the Great, Eric the Red. They're going across the cold North Atlantic and colonizing and raiding.
See,
it's not that. It is probably the most emasculated country in Europe, or one of the most.
Right. And so that actually made me want to look more into the whole history of Sweden, because that could have been to more or less like kind of similar to a lot of places in Europe and all around the world, no matter what country. There was always this emasculated class of people that wanted to, that just basically they wanted to run the world. They wanted to get rid of the patriarchy or masculine men. Maybe they were less masculine, and instead of actually being led by men, they wanted to lead their own selves, and so I think this world is ran by betas in many ways. Like, this is a beta-fied society, beta-fied systems of everything.
So yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, you can look across so many different cultures, Mongolian culture in particular,
yes,
Chinese culture, all throughout European history for sure. If you go back to Charlemagne and Charles Martel, and just, France and how much that has changed. Its reputation, even in World War II, was maybe the most country that was out in Europe at the time. I mean, history is really important in that regard. And I myself need to even do more work, research, and understanding it too, because it's even more important now.
Man. And it makes you think, though, like these countries, even though they're so emasculated now, these were the same countries that were colonized, even the United States. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. The irony in that, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of them were. All of them. Yeah, I mean, pretty Germany, France, the UK, all throughout Asia for them, United States, they are, and that's the total role reversal. I mean, Japan even to some extent.
Even some countries in Africa, a lot of them are the same way too. Mm-hmm. It's worldwide. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is. That's an interesting observation. That it's almost like part of it I felt, and definitely taking history classes in high school, the narrative when I was in those classes was like, there needs to be guilt, or we need to feel guilt for the fact that as Americans, this is, we went to this other country and we colonized it, and a lot of them weren't even a part of it, right. But that was the masculine era, and now it's feminine era. Let's stand off, let's stand away.
And the funny thing, a lot of people don't know that even in slavery times, like, and I'm just using black and white for this example, but they had black slaves and white slaves at the time. So it was similar. Like if they felt like there was a black slave that was more masculine, they dealt with him to emasculate him. But then there was also white slaves that felt that way. Like if they felt he was like not agreeing with slavery, or he felt like they felt like he was more masculine, they would enslave him too. And so a lot of the Civil War traces its roots back to that, in many ways, because it's like you had a lot of slavery and it didn't matter the color. Like Europe, the first slaves over there, most of them were European slaves, like starting out. So it's like slavery was worldwide and still is to this day. It's like this. Now it's like, like Kanye West, he wrote that song, modern day slave. That's the thing.
Yeah. And he gets so much flack for a lot of things that he does say that are accurate too.
Man,
accurate. I mean, just continue. I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and I'm sure you have too. And I actually was talking to a friend about one of his lines today. It was the one where he ended up getting criticized for making light of alcoholism, I think it was, when he said, I drank to take the pain away, but what's worse, something or the hangover. I couldn't remember exactly. I can't remember exactly what the lyrics were, but even something like that where it has a lot of truth in it. Oftentimes, the most truthful statements are the ones that are most criticized now.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and then
no place for a profit, right?
No place for a profit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess on this note, because we pretty much wrapped up mostly everything, man. But I was going to say, like, it makes you wonder, like, because when they say who's more dominant nations or who has the wealth and things like that, but you look at people, let's just say the men, right, depending on what country they're from, but phenotypically, that if you were doing hand-to-hand combat, if there was a war, they wouldn't stand a chance.
Right. When push comes to shove, the proof is in the pudding,
Yeah.
And it would not work at all. And part of it has become that as we've gone into a more technological and more machine-oriented industry, there hasn't been that same emphasis on the physical movement.
Facts.
It's very interesting to tie in.
Yes.
As well.
It's tying right in with the whole androgyny.
Yep.
And there was this movie, it was about Rihanna. I forget the name of the movie. But it was like a sci-fi movie that came out. And it had everybody was just looked androgynous. It was like an androgynous species of people in there. So I was like, that's the future. That's pretty much, how the future started many centuries ago with those who colonized or whatever, because, it's about men not working together. You just have to try to usurp the man that you think is stronger instead of being like, hey, we can work together as men, you know. But now it's like,
Right.
let's just get rid of this idea of man. You know, let's do that.
Yeah, let's get rid of it. Then that brings in the whole conversation about, you know, sexuality and how we're trying to get away from, you know, the male female. It's now a million different, you know, it's a lot of times, you know, bi, or, you know, it's this, it's that, you know, it's not strictly one or the other, you know, because they're trying to get rid of this idea of even sex being a thing that exists.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right.
You know? So it's all linked in different ways. They're all like enmeshed, and I think part of the process of a lot of red pill content creators is just trying to piece them together in a way that people can understand what's going on.
We got to make a red pill Bible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it gets to the point where it's just we got to break this down and link these things together, because there is a connection.
Yes.
There is a jigsaw puzzle out there.
I agree. And I think that's really more or less, to be honest with you, I think that's how the old scrolls were made, put together. You had these different theses and philosophies and divine scriptures, and then you just put this all together. You put different connotations, depending on the time frame they were written, and you could kind of like put all this together, and it represents like a lot of the precursor to modern day history that some people would try to change if they could. You know, like people want to change history all the time, or change what the future could possibly be. So so I did a live stream not that long ago, and it talked about, you know, they talk about the 80-20 rule. And I'm like, it's actually backwards. I think it's backwards. You know, they've been saying backwards, because so they say like the alphas are the guys getting all the gals, and the other guys who aren't alpha, they aren't getting the girls with. And I was like, no, it's the other way around. These girls don't want a guy that's like a leader type, masculine or alpha per se. They don't want that. No. That's controlling. That's controlling.
Yeah, I've heard that said. I'm trying to remember who got a lot of criticism for saying that. I was trying to remember, but no, I've heard it applied many times, in particular to red pill concepts, and Nick Howe.
Yeah,
is the 80-20 principle, and if not the 80-20, the 90-10, the 95-5 even.
Yeah,
you know, it's even, you know, to more extremes, and it is true. I think how natural selection would have it is that the alpha would be the 20% of men getting 80% of the resources or whatever it is. But now it's, can you be compliant and play the game as a simp, basically?
That's it.
You know,
that's it.
You know, you might not have your one woman. You might have to just, you know, e-beg and have many that don't give you any attention, really, but, you know, just take your money and move on, but you will maybe be a part of the 20, you know. So it's it's an important rule to think about. I have read that book. I have read the 80-20 principle too. It's definitely an important one to think about, because it's proven in so many different areas.
So, you know, on that note, you know, and I guess we can sign off here if you got you know, you got things like that, but it makes you wonder, which percentage of that represents the modern Renaissance man?
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't know for sure, but I think there are more and more men that are understanding, you know, in searching this information out and trying to find it, and that's what the Renaissance is. I think there's a Renaissance of men.
That's deep.
But the other thing is, a lot of them are not public. They're not the type of men that are going to be posting a lot or making these trendy videos and getting a lot of attention, because a lot of them are really just minding their own business.
True.
So a lot of the most, you know, men that would fit that label are not even known, you know. And so I think that's why it's important to, you know, talk to the ones that you do know.
Yeah.
Stuff like this is definitely important too, and why it's happening.
But and if you think about it, that has biblical proportions to it, because if it's more or less that there could be maybe like 10 to 20% per se that actually fit that bill, because we don't know about them. Then as time goes on and generations later, more men start to know that could change the percentile. So that to me means that can literally change the world.
That's the hope, and there needs to be some change because, I mean, things aren't getting better; they're getting worse for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And it's almost apocalyptic out there. And that's the other thing is like you have to be patient with this stuff too. You know, you're not going to win a war right away with it, and you really might not win a war for 3 or 4 generations.
Facts.
You know,
Facts.
is the other thing. You know that it's because this is pretty new, and this kind of resurgence. I talk about this too. A lot of people are like, "Why aren't there more men become men?" And I'm like, "Well, there's really hard for us to know because what we know is based on the internet. There's a lot of men that are, you know, adhering or knowing of this stuff that aren't on the internet too."
Yeah, I'm to the point, and I don't even mind saying this publicly, but I'm to the point now. There might be a time when I might not necessarily post. There might be things I might just have to pass down, you know.
Yep.
Because I think now it's going to get to the point of where there is enough knowledge out there on the internet, and so I see what we're learning evolving, and it's evolving more. But at the same time, we do want to have, I believe, a universal message that we can definitely relate to each other as men. So it's like that balance too, you know. So on a nutshell, maybe I guess there would have to be a way men can convey a similar message. And if we don't have to put it up on the internet, we don't have to do that either. And these same things can just be passed down. You know, I think there was just certain codes of conducts men grew up with universally back in the day, and maybe that can come back as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too. I think a lot of this information needs to be logged. Also, you know, it needs to be kept because we know how those things go.
Yeah.
You just had the Library of Alexandria; it burns down, and so much of the world's knowledge was gone.
See,
you know, and this stuff disappears, and you know, we find the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's a miraculous thing that the Dead Sea Scrolls are found.
Yeah.
But you know, why did they even have to be found? You know, why were they not just preserved? And that's the other thing that's important, and a lot of guys are doing is they're logging this information on their own. They're putting it on their hard drives because we all know that it's definitely not. There's not infinite security around this information. You know?
Yeah.
Flagged a lot of the times.
Yeah. And I try my best. I try to see my channel, and I have a few other channels, but I try to see them as like time capsules in many ways. And
yep, me too.
Yeah. Because there could be a time they might have to relearn. You know, the next generation might have to relearn.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and in terms of a time capsule, it's just to it's just to be able to reflect and look back on. This is what I was thinking at this time.
True.
You know, this is what that's why it's important to write down what you're thinking on a daily or weekly basis and store it somewhere and be like, all right, 10 years ago I was thinking this. I've learned this since then. All right, this is how I have to go about going towards the future too.
Yes.
So
for sure. Well, it's been good having you on, man. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm glad we was able to chop it up, man, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and sharing your thoughts. I mean, definitely enjoyed the conversation, and I definitely would be willing to talk anytime you want.
Yeah, no problem, man. Well, I don't know what you're about to do, but I'm about to get something to eat here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get something to eat and then just relax and call it a night. I think that's what it's gonna be.
That's the thing, ladies. Renaissance man can cook really good.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. We'll definitely chop it up, and we'll chop it up down the road. We'll touch base here and there for sure.
All right, I appreciate it. You have a good night.
All right, you too, man. I got my hoodie up for you.
Then he's out.
All right.
Later.
Later. All right, everybody. I'm still here. So just to let y'all know, just chilling. Hopefully everybody enjoys this meeting that I had with Sunrise Hoodie. He does have a channel. So if some of y'all may want to check him out, go ahead and check out his channel. He's been around for a little bit. And I just think, like I said, he has a very indifferent perspective as far as the future and even just with the idea of what MGTOW is. I know that that term gets a lot of flack, because a lot of people don't understand MGTOW, even those who may claim to be MGTOW. But see, like with Sunrise Hoodie, he definitely understands. And, the way he talks about things, I can relate to that, even though I'm not MGTOW myself because I'm not necessarily a man going my own way. But I understand the whole aspect of what it means to go your own way. And there are principles within MGTOW that definitely resonate to me because someone like Sunrise Hoodie, he definitely conveys that message in a way that resonates to me. But with that said, this is a sequel. I was just like the issue is like because with the way with between me and Sunrise Hoodie, with the way our software and hardware is set up, we couldn't really necessarily do a joint panel together on StreamYard. So I had to pretty much do the live stream this way to where we were still able to communicate on a different platform. And I just was able to do StreamYard on a separate device. So here I am. And but I hope that everybody heard me well. I mean, especially those listening to this on the replay. But yeah, but since me and Sunrise Hoodie was able to work out uh as far as how to actually be able to chop it up like we just did, then I was able to kind of update my live stream titles to where I was able to actually do the sequel as originally planned with Sunrise Hoodie. And I shifted me and Red Supreme's live stream over to be an actual trilogy as originally planned, because it was actually part of the initial. At first, what I was thinking was I was going to have Red Supreme. We was just going to do a sequel or a continuation and leave it at that. But I was like, yo, Sunrise Hoodie, he's cool. I got to hear his perspective on this future as far as being a modern Renaissance man and things like that. Because to me, he has an indifferent perspective I can relate to. So it just went down. So we did that. And the trilogy to this Renaissance man with Red Supreme TV is coming up later on in this upcoming week, given the date of this video. So hopefully everybody likes that live stream that's coming up, as well as hopefully everyone likes this particular live stream that was just done. This was kind of, it wasn't planned. I just did it off the jump, because I wanted to make sure, being respectful to Sunrise Hoodie, that he didn't mind if I did a live with him publicly, so but other than that, my closing thoughts on this particular matter, given the sequel of this topic of the modern Renaissance man, and given what me and Sunrise Hoodie discussed, my thoughts more so is if you think of the movie with Will Smith, I Am Legend, I believe that's what it is, if I'm not mistaken, and he was around all of those zombies and stuff like that. And to me, that represents the modern Renaissance man who knows how to step out in the middle of nowhere where, one may not necessarily want to see a man stand on his own with his own masculinity, but nevertheless, he's masculine enough to still know how to survive because, he has his masculinity. Yeah, it was I Am Legend. I just did a Google search of it. So yeah, it was I Am Legend with Will Smith. And on his own as a man, he was able to get out there and survive on his own. He lived in a society in apocalyptic situation to where there weren't a lot of men amongst him, but he was still one of those few men. And he was able to prove that in that particular movie. And I see that no different with given kind of some of the things me and Sunrise Hoodie discussed tonight. Is about a man still knowing how to survive on his own, given that he still has a lot of masculinity in him. He still has a lot of these attributes. He still is a go-getter. I've always liked to say to a lot of prospective women I run into, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got it, baby, but I'm a go-getter. Yes, indeed. I ain't got it, but I know how to go get it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I am. So, you know, for me, I don't do all that hypergamy stuff because it's about being primal. I see you and me like as if, sweetie, I see her and me like as if we out on the island and you needed to find a man to help you chop down trees and stuff. You know what I'm saying? You need somebody that's gonna be like, how you gonna forage? How you gonna hunt some animal down to eat? So I think real primal like that in regards to women. You know, I think that's important because we're living in times where, you know, as time goes on, you're going to have to be primal with women as far as, you know, how you and her interact. Like not just on the standpoint of just survival, but even sexual. Like we have to really click, you know what I'm saying, to survive, to interact sexually. And obviously to round that up, it's based on our spiritual connection. Like, because if we got a good spiritual connection with each other, we're going to survive good together, and we're going to always have a wonderful, sexual connection with each other. All that's going to be like a full circle. And in these times that we live in, it's important that people think futuristic as far as how you to interact with each other. Y'all got to get futuristic with this. Real talk. Because we living in them times right now. The future is here. The future is here right now. So for those listening to this on the replay, hopefully this live makes sense to some. Maybe this live did not make sense to others, but to the others that this live made sense to, feel free to hit that like button. Hopefully everybody heard me and Sunrise Hoodie well tonight, despite that we had to do this live stream with multiple devices. Hit that like button. Nevertheless, if, you know, everything's still copacetic with you hearing us, share this video, share this live stream per se. If this is the first time you have been to my channel and you haven't subscribed and you like my kind of content, feel free to subscribe. That will be much appreciated, most definitely. Got a few other live streams upcoming for sure. So hopefully everybody comes out for that. Also, those listening to this on the replay, any questions, any ideas, feel free to put that in the comment section below. I also have links to my other channels and as well as other platforms. And I also have a Discord. Check out my Discord. And I have some other things I want to do as far as I don't know. I got a lot of different projects coming up, and maybe I might need everybody's support, you know, not just financially per se, but just motivational, you know. Come holler at yours truly, you know. All motivation is good motivation because motivation is supposed to be good anyway. But other than that, I can't think of anything else to say at this time besides the fact that I think my stomach is doing more talking than I am right now. So until next time, signing out.